It was crazy. Like, it's crazy to see how everyone's shifted and everyone's goals and how everyone has created different things. It was just a learning curve, but I made sure that I leveraged the network that I was building on social media to learn more about how to run a business online. Because again, it's not like I was seeing clients or seeing people because it was the pandemic. Riqueza was born from all of that because at the end of the day, all I wanted for a community it was to embody and to dream about what the riqueza was, because I didn't know what my riqueza was.
Well, hello, Lea. Welcome to Empowermente. I'm so happy to have you. It's so amazing how we connected recently, and we have so many connection points, and we have very strong missions. So I'm just very excited to talk to you. I know you've been an entrepreneur for a few years, so thank you. Thank you for being here. So I'm curious to know what your experience was as you entered corporate and what was going through your head.
I 100% agree that the only thing that I was dreaming about was getting a really good job and like becoming an executive. Like, I always wanted to be a CEO, but I wanted to be a CEO of like some top company. And I had it written down in like a journal that I wanted to be a CEO of a financial company, get a master's in finance. And that was like my dream. I never wanted to pursue entrepreneurship, if I'm honest. Like, that was the last thing that I ever wanted because I wanted financial stability, right? After going through the financial trauma that I witnessed growing up, I did not want to go through that in my own life. For me, you know, I did not know how to navigate corporate America. I think this is a common first-gen experience because I know people and families who have parents who had corporate jobs. They were taught how to navigate the system or how to negotiate their salaries or how to prepare their 401ks and make sure it's set up correctly. Versus when you're a first-gen or child of immigrants, you're not really taught how to navigate this corporate system. So obviously I go into corporate America with like blue shiny eyes, like, oh my God, financial security. I get a paycheck every 2 weeks. I think I started at like $43,000 a year, but hey, you know, back then that was money. Money was money. But I did not realize that I had to negotiate my salary because in corporate America, at least for me, and the culture that the company had was, you don't ask about your salary, you are given what you were given, and that's about it. And so every single year I just kind of took what I got, right? Obviously most years it was okay, like, you know, a 6% raise, a 5% raise, a 10% raise, good bonuses, like 5,000, 6,000. The biggest one I ever got was like 11,000. But again, I didn't know much about navigating the corporate system. All I knew is that I was good at what I did. My managers loved me. I was technically a manager by the end of everything. And I pivoted into tech, like the tech side of the business by the end of my time there, because I really wanted to get into the tech world because the pandemic was telling everybody move to tech, right? Move to tech, financial security, good jobs, good paying jobs. And so I got a master's while working there. When I took advantage of the system in every way, shape, or form that I could say, because I wasn't going to pay for it myself. And I call it a game because that's how I saw it. Because everybody moved a little bit differently depending on what they wanted to get. And it's so weird. Like, corporate culture is like a game because it's like, if you do this, it can lead to a promotion. But if you act like this, it could set you back. If you meet regularly with your managers, they know that you're like ready and you want more. But if you don't, you're too quiet and you don't want anything. So closed mouths don't get fed. I moved to this job, like I said, and I found out that I was underpaid $50,000. You know, during the pandemic, I was like, it's about to be compensation season, and I moved into tech, so I'm hoping I'm gonna get paid more. And we just onboarded this new product manager under me, and I'm like, hey girl, so now that we're talking and we're like on a good level, right? Like, we're besties, I would love to know what your compensation is because compensation season is around the corner. And I would like to know what the basis is for me to look at, especially since you were recently hired. And she tells me, well, I'm hired at $110,000. Like, that was my rate. And then I'm over here like, she's like, what's your rate? And I'm like, what are you getting paid? And I was like $65,000. Like, it was not even close.
Wow.
Insane.
Yeah, I can imagine that feeling, especially somebody who's under you.
Yeah, like she was like, I was teaching her, I was training her, I was doing everything. And then, like I said, no one taught me how to negotiate. So I'm over here Googling, how do you negotiate? Google, like, for product manager, in Utah. Decided to schedule a call with my managers. And I'm like, hello. It's time we meet because I would like to negotiate, or I would like to discuss my compensation, especially since compensation season is around the corner. And around this time of year, so the fall to Q1 is around when you have promotion season, compensation season, where you have these discussions, and usually you get paid out your bonus and your raise in Q1. So essentially, we have this meeting and they tell me, hey, Lea, I hear your concerns, because I'm like, girl, why am I getting paid $110,000? Or why am I getting paid $63,000 and this girl is getting paid $110,000? By all means, she deserves it. But what's the discrepancy
But also,
here?
what about me?
Yeah, like, what's the discrepancy here? How do I make sure that I get jumped to my market value, or at least like get close to it, so that I know I'm like on track, right? Like, I'm gonna get there soon. And essentially at the end of the call, they're like, unfortunately, Leah, there's not much that we can do. Like, I can go talk to HCM or HR, but unfortunately, like, we have a pay structure that we follow every single year, and we don't like jump people 50K in 1 year. That's not what we do. My defense wasn't enough for them. They took it back to even their HR. They're like, unfortunately, since you grew up in the company, you have no market value. We kind of define it for you. We won't be able to like negotiate, because it's not like if you quit and come back, sure. But since you grew up here, we kind of like determine what that looks like. And I'm just like, all right, well, so the advice here is, don't stay loyal to no company, porque al final del día,
Yes.
al final del día van a hacer lo que a ellos les conviene. Y al final, I decided to pursue a side hustle. I was like, all right, well, I got a house to pay. I got bills. So this side hustle was Riqueza, but it was called Landaverde Collective back then. And it was about just like business consulting. So I did a lot of business consulting because I saw my dad help other people run businesses. I learned a lot from entrepreneurship, and I know a lot about finance. So I was like, let me merge my knowledge and be able to help my community during the pandemic, because this is all happening during the pandemic. So
I love that you use the knowledge that you have to monetize it, right?
Yeah,
And
like-
like standing in that power.
there was nothing else I could do. I mean, like, my friends were asking for help, and they're like, well, Leah's the most educated one we know, so might as well ask her. And I was like, well, might as well make some money, even if it's $100 per person,
I
right?
feel like- I feel like that's how I navigate life. Like I do something like, well, might as well do this instead. And
Right.
might as well just add on to that. And then one thing leads to another. I love that.
No, porque no había de otra. En final, I had to pay my bills, and it's not like I was going to call my parents and be like, hi, pay my bills, you know? I was a grown woman at that point. I mean, in my eyes, I was grown. I was not that grown. I was like 23 or 24, around there, 23. But I still had a lot of responsibilities. And the long story short is that my business was a conflict of interest. And so I was forced to quit in one day. And I got a week before that, I had gotten an update on my compensation, and they upped me from 63 or something like that to 71 or something like that. And my bonus was 11,000, and that was it. And I was like, yo, whatever. It was something that at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? If they're telling me I'm forced to quit, and literally it was happening when I went to go visit my parents, and it was like February of 2021, which I had already registered Riqueza at that point. So Riqueza was born in January. So essentially by February, it was like, all right, well, you have no choice. And I took a risk in myself because I had no other option. Like, I was like, why would I put my dreams to the side for a company that clearly can stab me in the back. And my managers didn't even have the audacity to like defend me or protect me, or my colleagues didn't like no one stood up for me except for one of my mentors was trying to get a hold of somebody. But at the end of the day, like when like te ponen los cuernos, I guess you could say, and they're like, we're done. We're like, that's it. And my last day.
Qué fuerte, qué fuerte. And I think it speaks to just like the loyalty that we were talking about, that like I feel like it's hard to understand that you are providing a service with your expertise that is intended to be multiplied in profits, and that like you have to put yourself first, right? Like I know a lot of first gens that end up overworking and being burnt out, as you would mention, being overworked and underpaid, because it's kind of like the values that are instilled with us and we expect a reciprocation from the systems that we're in, but it doesn't happen that way.
Pues al final del día no tenía de otra, era pues esperar que algún día me dieran el dinero que merecía o tomar control de mi dinero, tomar control de mi futuro. Yeah, it's purpose. I think a lot of what our comunidad looks for is purpose, propósito, ¿verdad? We were taught to have purpose. We were taught to be grateful. We were taught to be humble and remember who we are because we have a purpose. We have a purpose for our life, and my purpose was clearly not there. And I had to sell my home. I had credit card debt, so I had to get out of that. And I had this like whole coming to Jesus moment, like, well, it's time to start over. And I felt like literally I started over. When I really pursued Riqueza, I moved into my parents' house. I didn't even have a room. It was like a guest room. And I was like, all right, well, let me put my couch in here and let's start, running a business out of my laptop that I had no idea how to run an online business, but I was like, it's time to figure it out. And I did it, I did it. My first year in business, it was crazy, I guess you could say, because I was like, wow, I can make money. I can make money on my own. Confían en mí, like la comunidad confía en mí. And the more that I shared my story on socials, the more that I got community, like the more that I built community. And it was not in Utah. It was above, like it was nationally. It was California, it was New York, it was Chicago, it was Texas, it was everywhere. And I was like, wow, people resonate with my experience. People resonate with my mission. And like back then, people didn't really post their business like that, like journey on social media. It was like, Instagram is for personal reasons only. That's really it. And so when I was like building my business and posting about it online, I eventually found other entrepreneurs. I eventually found other coaches, because I guess I didn't know what coaching was. I was doing consulting, and then I learned what coaching was. And so like all the big coaches that you see today, like I was friends with them back then, and we were all novice, we were all new, and it was crazy. Like it's crazy to see how everyone's shifted and everyone's goals and how everyone has created different things, and it was just a learning curve, but I made sure that I leveraged the network that I was building on social media to learn more about how to run a business online. Because again, it's not like I was seeing clients or seeing people because it was the pandemic. So I had no other really option other than to create content. And Riqueza was born from all of that, because at the end of the day, all I wanted for a community was to embody and to dream about what the Riqueza was, because I didn't know what my Riqueza was. I didn't know what I wanted, because I thought Riqueza was having a home and having a stable job. And when that stuff is ripped out of your life, because you're forced to do it, there's no other option. I don't want to go broke keeping a home. I realized that wealth was more than that. Wealth was a lifestyle. Wealth was my freedom of time. Wealth was the desire within to pursue more. It was being with my family. Yeah. I spent that year with my family. It was 10 months almost. And by the 10-month mark, I was like, Lea, you're finally making enough income to afford an apartment. you can now like take action. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And I didn't want to be in my parents' house anymore because I had already lived like 7 years without them. So I was like, I gotta go. Yeah, I can't do this anymore. And I knew a lot of emprendedores y emprendedoras que pues they were with their parents too. They did a lot of similar moves that I had done back then because of the pandemic. And I picked Dallas out of all places because I couldn't afford California. That would have been my first choice because I was more connected with the California community because I lived in Utah and my parents would always, like, we have family there. We would go there often. And we don't really have any family in Texas. I know I had a tia in Houston, but I was like, well, I have a friend that's in Dallas and she says it's a good time and maybe this is a place that I need to go. And the universe kept pulling me in that direction. And by the 10-month mark, it was around March of 2022. Yes, March of 2022. I decided to move, and I took me and my 2 dogs and my younger brother, the one after me. He drove me there, and I moved. I was like, this is it. I had never left the state. I had never moved anywhere other than like 4 hours farther than my family. And I uprooted my life to take up more space. That's how I see it. Because I feel like in life, you eventually stay stagnant because you're around the same people, you're around the same things. And I feel like you get stuck. Like I felt like I was stuck. I was like, okay, well, I want to take my business farther than what it is. And I can't do it here because my community is small. Like my community isn't what I want. My community is online. And even then, they're like everywhere. They're in Texas, they're in New York, they're in California, and I could be closer to them. And so I picked a place where it was more affordable for me to go. And Dallas opened their arms. Like Dallas has opened its arms to me. It's where I met my wife. It's where Riqueza really could take up space because now is all or nothing. Like now is like, okay, Riqueza can now pay for your bills, but Riqueza shouldn't just be for you. Riqueza should be more than for you. It should be for others, and Riqueza's for the collective, right? That's why we're called the Riqueza Collective. And it allowed me to take up more space, to meet more people, to grow. And like, I kid you not, the last 3 years almost being here has changed my life. Like, I could not be more grateful to the universe for them to guide me here because en realidad, like, I don't know how I did it. Like, cuando pienso en mi negocio ahora, we're a team of 8 people, all fractional, and we all have businesses that we all love and run, and we all come together on this one mission to help our people with Riqueza. We have had our first big partnership this month for Riqueza, not Latina Wealth Activists, because Latina Wealth Activists became me. I wanted to separate myself from Riqueza, especially when I moved here, because I wanted Riqueza to be for all, Riqueza to be a representation of our community, versus Latina Wealth Activist to me is the passion that I have within to push our community for more in different aspects, from politics to economics to even like wealth equality to business. There's more than that, right? Investing. And so Riqueza, I wanted it to be the financial education and knowledge that our community needs in order to persevere. Here, the financial system, 30% of Hispanic Latina individuals are unbanked or underbanked because they don't trust the financial system. They don't trust banks. Yeah. They've been discriminated against. In 2021, the Latina GDP is 1.3 trillion. And we're like moving the economy forward. Like when I was growing up, girl, and I was going to college, they would talk about us like we were nothing. They would talk about in school, like I would hear the data points, Latinos this, Latinos that, but like we were like the scum of the country, like back then. And now that I'm witnessing the economic impact that our community has, and yet we're still at the very bottom of the wealth gap. Like we're running the American economy, but what about our personal economy?